Hey, Stephen Yanni here doing the junkyard crawl at Bernardston Auto Wrecking in Bernardston, Massachusetts. There I pronounce it Bernardston. Call them up. They're selling everything here, and I stay out of the middle, but come and get it if you want. One of those things you might want to come and get is this Jeep CJ. It's 1979. Now, here's the thing. We all know that the World War II spawned the GP, General Purpose light utility vehicle, which helped to win World War II, built by Ford and Willis and Bantam. Well, when the Jeep came out in civilian form as the CJ, or civilian Jeep, in 1946, it lived for decades. So if you've seen one Jeep CJ, you've seen them all, right? Not so fast. This is a CJ7. We know that because it rides on a much longer wheelbase than the standard CJ5. Now, the CJ5 rode on an 84-inch wheelbase. These have 9.5 inches more wheelbase, or 93.5, and it's all from the cowl back. So when you see a CJ7, look for the longer opening. So by comparison, this is a Jeep catalog from 1975, the year before the CJ7 was launched. Of course, 76 was the first year for CJ7. But if we look in here, we'll see where the little Jeep CJ5, the opening for the door is actually quite a bit smaller than it is on the CJ7. In fact, this wouldn't fit in the opening of a CJ5 right here. It would be actually about short like that. Now, the problem with those things was a few. One, too short for an automatic transmission. So the 76 CJ7 was the first CJ with an optional automatic. Again, automatics are longer than manual, so the CJ7 opened the door to automatics. And the ride quality got way better. The 84-inch wheelbase on the CJ5 on the highway, they're known to buck and have a weird cycle that starts up, whereas CJ7s are quite a bit better. Now, of course, the ultimate is the Scrambler 1981, which rode on a 105-inch wheelbase, which is like 10 inches longer than this. Those are highway cruisers, but so rare. But again, CJ7 also had much longer legroom areas in the front and the back, so much more comfortable vehicles in so many ways. Of course, the CJ7 was also the first one with an optional factory hardtop. So a lot to like and love. Now, one thing that's kind of a bummer on all CJs from about 1973 on up is the fact that the VIN is a sticker. And if you paint the Jeep, almost everybody paints over the sticker. And the data on what the thing was is gone, unless you can be like NASA or the Smithsonian and remove the paint layers with, care and love. But who knows what year this thing's? Well, we can go under the hood and learn more. So we come over here. And of course, the classic 7-slot Jeep Grille, which Jeep, AMC, Chrysler went to court over. We all know that the Hummer, for a few seconds, tried to utilize this look right here, but this is protected by a patent. And again, that's just classic Jeep stuff. But under the hood, well, okay. This one has the 6-popper in 1979. This would be the 258. Up till 1981, you could get the 304 V8. But getting back to that whole paint and model year, this thing used to be maroon. We can see the paint on the bottom of the hood. Somebody resprayed it resale red, clearly. But we go to the emission sticker right here on the radiator support, and here it is, right here, 1979 model year. So it's a 79, which is nothing wrong with that. Again, it's the smog era. So we look at the engine, we see this goofy looking thing right here. That is the thermactor, or the smog pump. What that does is with the belt, it spins and it pumps air into the backfire valve, and then this thing pumps air into this metal tube, which has a little runner to each of the 6 exhaust manifold outlets right here. That air is injected right as the exhaust gas comes out of the head, increases the combustion temperature so that when the exhaust gases reach the catalytic converter, they're hotter and it burns more completely, getting a cleaner tailpipe result. But the pisser is, these things seize up and, oh, that one still turns, what do you know? But again, these things sap about 5 horsepower, but that was one of the band-aids that was added to the AMC 6-banger to make it clean up for federal emissions. So that's interesting. Now this one, from 1977 up, or before 77, all CJs had drum brakes front and rear. But for 77 up, you could get optional discs, which we see on this one here. And of course, the CJ was the last remaining off-road vehicle with leaf springs and beam axles all the way around. Here it is, pretty antiquated stuff, but you know what? If it works, why change it? This one does have the rubber wheel lips, which tells us a couple things. Either it was a Renegade, where these were standard, front and rear, Or as an option, you could get these when you get the wider wheel and tire package. So again, the rubber wheel lips add some macho to this one. Now, something interesting about this one is the roll bar, and that is a roll bar. You know, as you get into the 80s, these are called style bars by car makers, because if you call it a roll bar and it fails in a crash, the lawyers come running. But in the 70s, these were called roll bars, and they absolutely were integral to saving a lot of beans and noggins. But here's the deal. Up till 1980, these were optional. You paid extra. 1980 on, these became standard equipment, and they're bolted down. This is not for looks. This absolutely is a structural part of this Jeep. Not that there's much left of this thing, but now this one is not an automatic. It was possible. This one's a 4-speed, but these seats, you gotta love these things. These are Bostrom thin lines, and if you own a 68 Hemi Dart, you're very lucky, but you also have a set of these things in your 68 Hemi Dart, as you would in your 64 or 65 race Hemi B-body. The Bostrom thin line was used in a number of applications, Mopar race Hemis, and yeah, Jeep CJs. So if you're building a Mopar Superstock clone, don't overlook Jeep CJs as a possible donor for the seats. Get them recovered with some raw ball interior covers, and you'd be all good. But that's what we got there. Rear drum brake on this puppy, which is of course what all of these had. No discs at the back of this Jeep, at least not during this era. Now keep in mind, 79 was a record sales year for Jeep with 177,575 made. A lot of them were Wagoneers, Honchos, various other vehicles. But of those 177 and change, there were 24,580 CJ7s with a long wheelbase. And believe it or not, CJ7 outsold CJ5. Again, about 25,000 CJ7s, 21,308 CJ5s, the shorter wheelbase. So these were pretty popular. And again, 79 was a record year for Jeep sales. Now this has something kind of cool in the back. This is the optional spare tire carrier. This was extra cost. It was installed at the dealer. You do this, you put your tire there. And like all 46 on, not military Jeeps, has a functional tailgate right there, so you can load and unload. The crazy thing is the military Jeeps from 39 or 38 through 45 do not have an opening tailgate. Kind of a weird thing. This is strictly about CJ when you see this on the back. And something kind of cool, I got to say, I love books, and I've written some books for Car Tech Books. This is Pat Foster's 1001 Jeep Facts. Pat Foster is an authority on AMC products, and this book is packed with data on CJs, DJs, you name it. And here's a scrambler right here. We talked about those a minute ago. These have 20 inches more wheelbase than an 84-inch CJ5. These are the queens of the highway. It's also a pickup truck, but again, very rare. 81 was the first year. These things are 20 grand, 30 grand if you find a clean one today. So, you know, this is a CJ7. So again, if you see one of these things, they're not all the same. Always look at the opening on the side. If it's long, it's a CJ7. If it's kind of short, it's a CJ5. They kind of look the same, but they're not. One final thing on this is the rear axle. That is an AMC Model 20. Now, Jeep also used various Dana spicers, but that's the big dog, that thing right there. That's the same rear axle used under the 401 AMX, the SC Rambler, the Machine. That's a good axle right there. It's got about an 8.5-inch ring gear. Tough parts, probably has a limited slip, although it's hard to say here. But again, Model 20 rear end right there. One of its final applications, I think 81 was the final year in the 304 V8 Jeep, and then they went to Spicer and AMC Model 30 rear axles. But that's the story of the Jeep CJ7, very popular in its day, and these are coming on strong. And believe it or not, almost anything you might need for this can be available today, brand new as a restoration item. So come and get it if you want. But until tomorrow, where there's lots more here at the Junkyard, on the Junkyard Crawl, well, subscribe and ring the bell, and I will see you next time.